So we will call to order the work session of the Beaver Area School District, Monday, March 9th, 2020. We will begin with the presentation from Beaver Memorial Library.
Hi, I'm Diane Wakefield, the Director of the Library, and we thank you for your continued support of the library for the last over 50 years. The partnership that we have with the school librarians has been very beneficial. Every quarter we meet and we plan on ways to work together to strengthen the services of the public library and the school libraries, the programs that we offer. And tonight we have Jen Cribbs, our children's librarian, and Suzanne Braley, the school librarian, who are going to make a presentation, and Suzanne is going to go first.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Suzanne Braley, and I, like she said, I'm the elementary librarian at College Square and Dutch Ridge. And I would just love to tell you about our school district and our partnership with the Beaver Memorial Library and how fabulous it is over the past few years. I have been with the district for about 13 years, but I don't know if some of you know this. I have, like right out of college, I received a position with the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh. And one of my positions was with the BLAST program, which stands for Bringing Libraries and Schools Together. So I worked for 3 years on the collaboration of the public libraries there and also the schools. So this importance of this partnership and the understanding of the importance of the partnership is very near and dear to my heart. Both public and school libraries are community centers at heart and with the same goal. We want to provide a safe, welcoming environment to all patrons and access, of course, to information. When the public and school librarians work together in collaboration, community members and students all reap the benefits. Jen, Diane, and Erin, the middle school, high school librarian, she's busy with the high school musical right now. But we meet quarterly, like she said, to discuss various learning opportunities for our students and also for our entire community. It's a chance for us to get on the same page and discuss any issues or celebrations that arise throughout the year. We rack each other's brains often to come up with ideas to support each other and our patrons. Jen, our children's librarian, and I work together to promote the library to our students at our elementary buildings. During the month of September, we offer library card signups with first graders. This year we had 33 of them sign up for their very first own library card. Jen, she comes to speak and hold programs during our school library classes. And she also visits us at the end of the school year to promote the summer programs. So each and every one of our kiddos gets to meet Jen, and she becomes a friendly and recognizable face throughout the year. The Beaver County Public Librarians and Beaver School Librarians work together also on the 5th and 6th grade Battle of the Books. This is our 11th year. 5th and 6th graders are invited to read books and prepare for a battle that is held at the BVIU. Last year, Dutch Ridge 6th graders actually brought home the first place trophy. And Erin Bechtel, our high school librarian, along with Western Beaver's high school librarian, added the 7th and 8th graders to a separate battle last year. This team effort provides these students with an experience that they won't soon forget. Beaver Memorial supports our students' summer learning when our school library is closed. We work collaboratively together to promote these programs that are free to our students and provide a great deal of learning experiences and reading opportunities so that they do not lose the momentum over the summer months. Not only does the Beaver Memorial Library provide our students with programs throughout the year, but they supply curriculum support for materials we do not have and vice versa. Teachers and students are often borrowing materials that supplement our lessons and learning. We do a special Caldecott challenge in first grade library classes that require students to read 10 Caldecott award-winning books. Most of the students go to the public library to be able to help with that requirement. They supplement resources for our first grade research projects as well as summer reading resources. I believe this ability to share resources brings new and exciting things to the table, and we mutually benefit from each other, and that is just one of the coolest things.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Diane. All right. Well, good evening. So, as you've heard, the Beaver Library, we are a major component in the district's strong education system. Now, we have this shared goal of advancement of education community-wide. Here at the library, we achieve this through self-directed education, research assistance, and various instruction, particularly with technology. There's so many people coming with these devices, they don't know how to use them, kids, people of all ages. We provide that instruction. And just various educational experiences through classes, workshops, and events for all ages. However, I'm here to talk to you just particularly about the children's events. If you take a look at the sheet I distributed, we have a breakdown of the happenings in our children's department last year. If you take a look, we held 294 different events, which were attended by 3,672 children. I see a lot of kids, and the majority come from the Beaver School District. Now, summer is by far our busiest season, and I am so excited to share that we have 2 of our most popular series of classes already on the schedule for this summer, which finding time and booking it, and it's just a great feeling to be oh no, this is happening, this is already on the schedule, it's on the calendar, it's awesome. So those 2 big ones are the Carnegie Science Center, which brings us the Science in the Summer program. And we also have this continuing partnership with the 4-H of Beaver County. For the past 2 summers, we've provided the summer camp. We're again going to reprise Backyard Explorers. Both of these experiences provide hands-on, curriculum-based, high-quality lessons for students. Now, if you take a look, the Science in the Summer camps are actually very similar to classes and camps held at the Science Center. If you were to look on their website right now, you would find that these courses run on average $300 for the week. Whenever you take into consideration the fact that you'd have to pay for parking, oftentimes before and after care. Now, if you have a kid 8 or up at the library, they're welcome to hang out at the library. We're not going to charge you for that. And that's not even considering the cost of actually getting them there and then the time you spend. Well, our attendance was 216 at those camps last year. So if you factor in $80 per day per child, which is approximately what it breaks down to, that means we saved our community $17,000 and gave some kids who otherwise would not have had the opportunity to attend a camp like that, the perfect opportunity just to walk down the street. One of our other big summer programs, and also whenever kids are off school, such as on in-service days or school holidays, I have to tell you, particularly those 4-day long weekends you guys have been giving. Some of the parents, we are so crowded on that Tuesday because people need to get out of their house and they're what do I do with these kids, grandparents? So we have these activities days, these afternoons filled with things centered around themes. In the past we've done robots, because robots always win, robots are awesome. Rockets in space, we've had maker days. Kids there, they do coding, they do physics experiments, chemistry experiments. Sometimes they just make and create, and it's just really cool to see. In fact, this summer we have a partnership with the Robert Morris STEMS department to bring even more programs to the Beaver Library. We've already partnered once during the most recent in-service day that was just for the elementary schoolers. It was so well attended and so fantastic. They made that elephant toothpaste with the peroxide and the capsules and just kind of made a mess and did a bunch of other stuff too, but it was really fun and I'm really excited about that opportunity. So again, the savings right here, if parents were to take their kids up to, say, the Pittsburgh Children's Museum, then if you look online right now, they charge $24 for a 2-hour workshop, plus there's $6 for parking. So with 208 students in attendance last year in 2019, again, that's a savings of $6,240. Plus, again, opportunities for kids that otherwise would not have been able to experience that. One more thing that I wanted to share with you is something else for the summer. We just received word last week from the Pennsylvania Library Association that we are receiving a materials grant. I applied for this back in the fall, and it's actually a tinkering kit. We're getting a digital camera with an animation studio, We've got like all sorts of different circuit kits. They're even giving us some Chromebooks and some iPads to add to our collection. So we're going to be integrating these into our already existing classes, but then I'm hoping to make certain things, as long as they're not consumables, available for checkout via our already existing tech library. Blanked on that for a second. The tech library, which last year we were able to integrate because of a grant from Shell. So we've got a lot of cool things happening and a lot of cool things continuing to happen. Our t-shirts say the library is the heart of the community. Everyone should get a t-shirt. They're actually still on sale at the library. Show your support. And now whether people are there for classes, events, tutoring, sometimes they're there for custodial visits. People need to use the computers, use our printers, and of course, borrowing books. The library definitely enriches the individual lives of our community. And if you guys haven't been by recently, I invite you all to come and check it out because we really, really, really have something for everyone, and I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a couple more sentences to wrap. A few years back, a statewide survey was conducted by the University of Pittsburgh, and they included that for every $10 invested in public libraries, $55 is returned to Pennsylvania taxpayers. And according to a December 2019 Gallup poll, library visits outpaced trips to movies and live sporting events in 2019. And between 1990 and 2014, visits to public libraries grew by a whopping 181%. So last year we checked out 164,000 items, and if patrons would have had to purchase those instead of checking them out, based on $25 each, it would have been $4 million. So we thank you for giving us the time to talk, and thank you for understanding the value of public libraries. Appreciate it. If you have any questions, let us know.
Thank you very much. All right. Any questions? All right.
We also understand that you may have a follow-up meeting after this, so if you had some other kind of collaboration and weren't able to stay for the work session, you're of course welcome. But we also understand that you guys need collaboration time, so thanks for being here.
All righty. On to item A, board committee reports, curriculum and staff development. Mrs. Tkach.
Nothing to report. We scheduled a meeting, but we have to postpone it, so I'll talk to the committee that is scheduled for a different date.
Okay, it's not yet rescheduled.
No, it hasn't.
Okay. All right, facilities and transportation, Mr. Thomas.
We had a committee meeting a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. It was pretty eye-opening. Mr. Hines and some of the staff in the building took us to, we only made it to the high school here and then over to College Square. We didn't get up to Dutch Ridge, but they took us through the building, showed us some things that are going on currently, some needs that we have. They gave us a list of top priorities, which we've talked about already at the last meeting. We're going to continue to work on this, but I don't know if anybody from the committee has anything to add, but it was pretty eye-opening just to see kind of what's going on in our buildings, and I personally learned a lot, so I thank them. They did a really good job with it. So Luke, Rob, I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that, but that's pretty much it as far as our committee now. I do know we want to still go, I personally still want to go up to Dutch Ridge, Mr. Hines. I know we talked about that, so if we could maybe work on scheduling a day to still do that, if you two would, or anybody else would want to still do that. I still want to do the walkthrough up there at some point.
I think the walkthrough for me just confirmed what we already know as a board, which is what we're battling with improvements and necessities that we're tasked with making those decisions on. So, but just seeing it and understanding, well, this is what we're up against was.
You're talking about from a capital expenditure perspective.
There's a lot of needs.
Yep.
There are, and John should be commended. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of work that obviously did not happen overnight. That work didn't pile up over the last 2 months. I mean, he's dealing with years and years of oversight and righting some wrongs, and it's pretty impressive the amount of work that's being done, but also a lot of cost savings that are happening as well because of some creative hiring and working with people that are in the district. It's we're very fortunate. So thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
That's it.
Awesome. Number 3, employee relations, Mr. Bovalina.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Number 4, athletic committee, Mr. Bickerton.
I requested to meet with the baseball boosters, so I'm trying to schedule that next week, meet with the committee and just hear what they have to say. So that's about it. Really, other than that, that's it. So.
Excellent. And our girls varsity basketball team came up 1 win short of the WPIAL championship, but they're now battling in the States, and we've had some strong representation at the swimming and diving program recently at Whitfield, so lots of good things there. 5, finance, that is me. We had a meeting scheduled. It's currently been postponed. We're going to get it done ideally in the next week or 2 to get everything ready for April, because budget season is very drastically approaching. So we want to get.
If I'm not mistaken, that one was rescheduled for next Monday?
Is it next Monday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very soon.
Before the meeting.
Okay. 6, disciplinary, Mrs. Hill.
Nothing.
Nothing to report.
Okay, that's good. 7, school safety, Mr. Baradelli.
Oh, I'm reporting.
Okay.
We did meet as a committee on the 26th with Brian Dehart from Brighton Township to talk about the possibility and what hiring an SRO for Dutch Ridge would entail. No decisions have been made. Brian was able to shed some light on the potential cost to the district, as well as logistics pertaining to the building which they would be assigned, and the daily responsibilities. We also discussed some options that might be a little more cost effective to the district while still meeting the needs of Dutch Ridge. We had asked Dr. Rowe, and she agreed that maybe updating the public on some of the improvements that have been happening over the years without compromising security might be beneficial. And so we were going to use the Citizens Advisory Committee checklist and go through that and sort of highlight some things that that have been done and that have been improved upon.
Yeah, and I know that you had said in the state of the district update next week, that was the plan for that.
Yep.
So. Okay. Good. All right. Number 8, Beaver Memorial Library, Mrs. Yates. You better have a lot to say. They just greeted you.
They had their soup luncheon on Saturday and netted $1,300. And I'm happy to say that our junior JROTC, 2 members, were helping. And if anyone likes gardening, there's a spring and summer series starting at the library, and the first one is April 15th. And registration starts at 6. There's a small fee per class, and you can pay at the evening of each class.
All right. Number 9, legislative, Mr. Baradelli.
Nothing to report right now. Well, I guess that's a lie if I keep talking. I know, I believe the House and the Senate passed the coronavirus funding. I don't know if there's any money in that's going to go towards schools or education to help these entities take the necessary precautions for that. So I'm going to dig into that, but I'll have a better report, more information next week.
And on that note, in case everyone didn't see it, we being the district, were featured on KDKA about the Backtronics program that we have actually had implemented for several years district-wide. And they came and gave an overview on how that hopefully will help to prevent any coronavirus.
Can I have your autograph? Because I saw you.
Yes, sure. Number 10, Beaver County Career and Technology Center, that is me. I missed the past month's meeting because that was the day of our special voting session this past 2 weeks ago, I guess.
Thursday.
Past Thursday. So I just received a copy of the minutes, so I'll provide 2 updates next month whenever I get them. Number 11, the Beaver Valley Intermediate Unit, Mr. Mobolino.
Yeah, no, we had the February edition last week. I attended. I don't have anything new to report, but I'm still learning and growing as a representative, so.
Excellent. All right, B, on to new business. Item 1, adopt school calendar for the 2020-2021 school year.
It's hard to believe that we're going into 2021 school year. Just a note about how the calendar is generally, how we generally come up with it. I always create a first calendar, look at it with the administrative team. Then based on their priorities, they might say, we want half days in these places because this is when it's best for us to look at data. They do a mid-year data review and an end-of-year data review. I'd make some changes. And then it goes out to all of the teachers. The teachers then talk to their district cabinet representatives. So each building sends 2 and sometimes 3, depending on the building, representatives to a cabinet to meet with the administration, and together we talk about the feedback that they receive. Based on that feedback, I create 1 or 2, and Suzanne can attest, sometimes I went a little overboard, gave them too many options, but generally I want to have 2 or 3 for people to compare. There was some interesting feedback last year about whether or not people liked having a long break at Christmas and a long break around the springtime. And our youngest Bobcats seem to have some problems adjusting when they need to come back to school. And so it was posited that that's really difficult for our kindergarten 1 and 2 building. And it was interesting to kind of watch the entire school community kind of then rally around them and say, okay, then we don't need to do that. But anyway, there's all of this to say that there's a lot of collaboration between the administration and the teachers in coming up with the calendar. In the end, I tell them it doesn't matter to me. There's certain guidelines that we have to have. And anything within that we can negotiate. So once we have the final one, which we should have by Wednesday of this week, then everyone will vote on it, and I will bring you a final calendar. You can expect that in your memo on Friday.
I think that it's commendable that the other buildings or teachers took the education of the College Square students into consideration. That's telling me that they're really thinking about student learning.
And it tells me that the teachers are really, I mean, the teachers even in that building are considering it, because who wouldn't want a longer break?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But they're taking what's in the best interest of kids, and they're making that the priority. That's what you can expect from the staff that we have here. At every turn, they're putting the kids' needs first.
So it sounds like you just unilaterally decided.
Yeah, it's totally unilateral, right? In the end, I picked. Okay.
Item 2, approve BVIU operating budget for 2020-2021.
Who's our
Aaron?
IU? Aaron?
They go over the.
Yeah, so they're asking for money that we don't have at a price we can't afford, but we're gonna move forward anyway.
Good. Is it an increase? Do you know?
No, I don't know. I'm just teasing.
I was gonna say, that's not at all the way that I understood their budget.
Yeah.
They
I just wanted to see
actually,
if everybody was listening.
I was hoping no one would ask any
no one did.
questions.
If you were watching at home, you saw no one react.
it's one of the few times where I feel like perhaps they're under asking. They are constantly trying to find ways to balance, just like all of us are, and they may have under asked for input or for finances from each of the sending districts. So it is not an increase to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, and all jokes aside, they are, just like us, trying to do more with less, and I know that they do a great job of budgeting over there, and they do provide the services that we utilize and need. So.
Okay. We're gonna lump 3 to 8. Get ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All at once. Number 3, retire board policy number 120, second reading. Number 4, adopt revised board policy number 112, second reading. Number 5, adopt revised board policy number 123.1, second reading. Number 6, adopt revised board policy number 126, first reading. Number 7, retire board policy number 129, first reading. Number 8, adopt revised board policy number 130, first reading.
So first I would ask if we have any questions about policies or numbers 3, 4, or 5, the second reading. Okay, then let's take a look at the first reading, policy 126. Policy 126 is about class size. Class size is something that it matters not only to teachers when they've got 25 little eyes looking up at them. That's a little bit different than at the secondary level. 25 sets of eyes, yes. 25 eyes would be, never mind. Right, so it's different when they're particularly young. We don't have any hard and fast rules. We have ranges that we try and stay within, and of course we take into consideration what teachers and building principals think. So this is generally the board agreeing with the numbers at the after consultation with the superintendent, and the superintendent is the one consulting with the principals and the teachers. So you would notice that building principals was taken out of that, and that's the reason why. The board doesn't actually consult with the principals. The board consults with the superintendent. And then it goes on to talk about administrative regulations regarding class size and all of the things that we would take into account, like subject matter, the type of instruction, the ability of the students, the age group, the use of teaching assistants, and the use of special facilities and equipment. All of those, of course, would limit or expand the class size. Questions about 126?
What is our cap at kindergarten and first grade?
I don't know that there is a hard cap. I would say that there's a range that we wouldn't want to exceed. I don't know that we would want to go any higher than 25 students if we can. Yeah, right, exactly. The look on your face says it all, right? If we can at all avoid that. We are finding that with the notable exception right now of our senior classes, a lot of our classes underneath those have 200 plus students in them. So again, in the high school and the middle school, you can spread them out a bit and shuffle their schedules, and some are going to CTC and some are going to CCBC, to the academies. We have some just really neat programs that allow us to spread that out. But again, in the elementary grades, it's pretty difficult to do that. Policy 129 is recommended to retire. This one is instrumental music, and that does not mean that we are getting rid of instrumental music. It simply means that this policy actually read like a procedure, and so PSBA suggested that we get rid of it. It is not what a policy is meant to be, and so they said retire that. That was the same with policy 120. Move on to the homework policy, which is, you had a question?
Yeah, is there something around this that is being governed in some other way by a different policy in some way, shape, or form that is necessary? Or just, this is just not necessary at all?
It's just not necessary. It's one of our programs. If we were going to curtail the program, the board would have to agree to that. If we were going to furlough a teacher or move a teacher, the board would have to agree to that. So there's just no point in this policy.
We don't say the F word, we don't say furlough.
Yeah, good point. Policy 130 is about homework and what the purpose of homework is supposed to be. The kind of definition or purpose has been expanded to those additional, to include those additional 4 categories with the wording that's in bold print, and then some guidelines. Again, we don't really have an issue with teachers assigning too much homework or not enough homework. I feel like we have a really good balance, and even a balance within the 5 areas that are listed there. So again, no major changes. This is really kind of language and wordsmithing here. Questions?
No, I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
My 14-year-old would argue that there's not too much homework. being assigned. He would argue that it's just way too much.
That there's too much.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Most comes from the elementary librarian.
Exactly. Okay, so those are your policies.
All right.
So I would just guess that if everybody's following the curriculum,
Mhm.
then all first grades would have almost the same homework.
Not
Not
necessarily. I mean, certainly they're all going to be hitting the same standards. Would it happen at exactly the same time? No. Perhaps one teacher gets a little bit farther, and so less homework is required, or another teacher doesn't get as far, so they need more.
I'm thinking just on a daily basis. That would be like, say it would be around 15 or 20 minutes. Not saying that that's it, but I don't think anybody would be like out of whack with, like some grade would have 30 minutes and the rest would have 15.
Yeah,
That's all
and
I'm
if
saying.
something like that is happening, certainly we want the parents to let us know.
I think this is like a topic of opinion though, sorry, raise my hand. Because like one student might take them 15 minutes to do their homework, whereas in another house it might take that another student to do that same homework for 30 minutes. So I think it's just like,
Yeah, and
it
she might be,
alters for each different household. Like, I mean, if you ask me, I don't think my kids have too much homework. But if you ask someone else with the same grade, they might say, oh my gosh, my kids have way too much homework. Your son thinks he has too much homework. They're in the same grade. So I think it's an opinion. I think
Director
when it
Yates
comes
might
to-
be suggesting that if somebody had 15 problems in one class
Right.
around the same standard and somebody else had 2, that wouldn't be an appropriate amount.
Like way out of whack.
So at grade level, just
Right.
not that you ever expect total
Right.
equity or parity, but that there's nothing.
Right.
And I guess that depends on
Standard
what they're
deviation.
covering in
I understand what
class
you're
and
saying.
what they're going home with too.
Some
So it
kids
also
might
depends
take
on the
longer.
teacher.
Okay, that's a good discussion.
All right. Number 9, approve cost for a police officer to attend work and voting sessions of the board.
So this was talked about two sessions ago, and then I neglected to have it on the voting agenda. So again, my apologies for that. This is the effort to bring that back for you to consider for a vote.
Comments?
It's
Questions?
interesting that it comes out tonight when we're facing these librarians.
Yeah.
Especially the whole murder of librarians.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I did say murder.
I do have a comment about it. So, or opinions. So up here under school safety, we were just discussing that we don't even know the cost of an SRO for Dutch Ridge, nor do we have one.
We do know the cost. They did give that to us.
But we're gonna vote on having a police officer at a school board session before we're gonna vote for an SRO officer for our students.
If this moves forward, yeah, that would.
So yeah,
So, you understand what I'm saying? And then where does this end? Because if you want security here, then you better start, I don't know if anyone here feels threatened or why it's a need. But is the board gonna approve security for all the school musicals? Are you gonna approve security for every track meet, every bocce meet, every basketball, every wrestling, every swim meet? Where, because if you feel threatened here and you want security here, then you should provide security for every single school-related function.
I think it's so much as feeling threatened, but there is something about being prepared and to avoid being unprepared.
So shouldn't we be prepared at track meets?
I don't know if we provide that.
Should we be prepared at the bocce meets?
This is the first time I've even learned that we have bocce.
So,
We have a Special Olympics unified bocce team.
So it's special.
So,
ed students.
I mean,
It's
this,
fantastic. by the way. It's one of the best programs.
this
It
originated,
is.
this originated several months ago from the notion of, at lots of different public events, that there are uniformed police officers. The thought was we should have one here. The cost was, I believe, between $3,000 and $3,400 for the year-ish.
Right?
Mid to low $3,000-ish range was the estimate for the year. The board may or may not approve this. The reason it's coming up now as opposed to after voting on an SRO or kind of an order of operations there is implementing the SRO. There's a lot more logistically that goes into it.
Oh, I understand, but.
Well, no, I know, but you had
money.
asked why were we doing
Yeah.
it then? Yeah. So it's being voted on now because that's this is the easiest thing to implement, right? We can literally just vote, we talked with
Right.
Chief Maggar, it's easy, as opposed to the SRO at Dutch Ridge. That doesn't mean it's going to pass. Obviously, there's going to be
Right, of course. There has
nine
to be a
votes, so we'll have to see what happens. But it was brought up simply because, and I know that there are some events that have police officers and some don't. Football does. I believe basketball does. But to your point, track and wrestling and some other things don't. So
Well, and my point is that would be equally as ridiculous as having an officer here. That's my opinion. I think it's ridiculous to pay for an officer here. But I'm not up there voting, but I give you my
All right.
opinion.
Well, I mean, I will say, one thing is, it's not out of the ordinary for it to happen. I mean, I was on Beaver Council for 6 years, and they have an officer at all of their meetings. He just sits there.
Well, I was told they don't. There
They
isn't.
do. I was
mean,
there for 6 years.
Magar's there, but he's not a carrying
not.
No,
officer.
Sergeant
Paid
McCoy
there.
sits there.
But isn't he there to give a report?
Yes, he's not
What's
there
that?
as an
He's there to
officer.
give a report.
Was he a
Yeah.
paid officer?
He's
Like
paid
he
by
was
the borough,
paid to be there?
but he's there at the meetings.
Right, but he's not specifically sought out, contracted, and paid.
That
to
is
be a-
true. This would be definitely be paying the cost. That's an absorbed cost because
That's
it's
the
their own
point.
officer, but he is in attendance at the meetings
Right.
as
But
an
I-
officer.
Well,
think
I
he's
mean,
there to
if I
give a
was a police
report,
officer,
not-
I'd
he's not
technically
there for
say I'm
safety.
here in attendance.
And he's an
I
employee
mean,
of the
his
borough.
opinion's been asked on matters before, but I don't think he's ever given Luke, you were on count. I don't know what you mean by report.
Well, when I was there, Maggar was the guy that would be there. And there were times when he would report on things that were police related, and there were times when he did not.
So are they not employees of the borough?
They are.
Well, they are.
Yeah.
Then that makes sense, that they're there.
So I'm saying this
So
is
Jared-
a different. I'm just saying that the concept of having an armed officer at a public meeting is not out of the ordinary. It does occur.
I'm sorry, I want to add on to this. I think originally whenever we talked about this, it was, well, we need to protect kids. But we look around tonight and how many kids are here? Like, it needs to go to kids first. All the money that we
Right.
spend needs to be focused on kids. And I'm not saying that we're not all valuable, but that's where the money needs to be spent. It needs to be spent on kids.
And that is constantly being discussed. There are a million things that we can do, right? There's 100,000 of them are very hard to implement, take a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of coordination and collaboration. Another 100,000 of, obviously I'm embellishing the number, another 100,000 aren't as hard, but still take time. And then as you go down the list, there are things that are very easy to implement. We can isolate what that cost is, and then we can make a decision. This is one of those things that is way down at the bottom, and typically at our voting meetings, we do have kids here. We do have teachers here. We do have other administrators here. So it's not that we're not looking at all the other options and trying to spend the money where it counts the most. Those things are happening, and it's a constant revolving process of us examining what can we do, what does the money allow us to do, where do we want to direct those funds. This is one that is important. I think it's important for me personally, and it's important for us to do this as a board, because when we're here and there's a whole plethora of different people, including kids, for us to spend roughly $3,400 a year, and that's okay. You guys, some of you can disagree on that, but it is one of them on the list that includes the school safety.
It's risk versus feasibility, and you've got to weigh which things are riskier and which things we want to spend our money on. And the fact that I agree, we should spend the money on the kids, and having a policeman here, there are rarely kids at these meetings, even voting sessions. And if there were a situation where somebody felt threatened or was threatened, then that's a completely different story. Like if it's a very large controversial meeting or something like that, and somebody said, hey, somebody sent me an email, it was threatening, that's a different story. It can
It is a
be,
different story.
it
I
can be
agree.
done on a, yeah, it's
I
actually.
feel like it could be more of
Very
on an
good.
as-needed basis.
Exactly.
With meetings. I mean, yes, it's only $3,000, but that only $3,000 could still go towards the kids. I mean, we just keep using you as examples, but I'm sure our librarians would love, you know, each school district could get $1,000 worth of books in their library for only $3,000 that we're spending on an officer. So, you know, our STEM labs, it's $3,000 worth of equipment that could be purchased.
There's a
And
lot.
didn't you say it was
There's a lot of
$55
things.
for every dollar? Or was it 55 for every 10?
I said,
Yeah.
55 for every 10?
$10 invested in public libraries,
Yeah.
$55 is
Right.
returned.
So,
Extrapolate
So
that
I say we
out, huh?
give the
So-
1,000 to the library.
right,
All right,
a
I need to-
librarian.
I need
So
the
just like
algorithm.
put the kids first.
Yeah.
All right, so this will come up again for a vote next Monday. Yay to approve, nay to not have the police officer. Number 10, approve legal services provider.
Okay, so, I'll ask my question again.
Before you do that, can I just explain what's going on?
Oh, sure.
So the
sorry.
board has been reviewing different contracts and different relationships that it has with outside services personnel. And one of the questions that was brought up was, do we want to retain Weiss Burkhardt Kramer or ultimately choose another solicitor? So it was approved at last month's voting session to put out a request for proposal to have people who are interested, solicitors and their firms who are interested, to apply for our solicitor, and we now have those responses because they were due on March 1st. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to ask the board, if we are or are not going to follow the RFP process that we put out for proposals that aligns with the state recommendations.
So what, and I'll let the board say their piece, but the RFP, if you read it, it has different bulleted items, and those items are scored, and we had 7 solicitor firms submit as respondents.
Can I ask, so, can I go first? So,
Absolutely.
and I brought this up at the last board meeting, because when we did this, my concern with it was, what's our protocol when we move forward? Because we never said if we get a list of 15 firms, who's deciding to dial that back to the top 5, or you know, what's the
board does.
criteria? Well, that's what we're going to debate right now. But you our superintendent, you recommended taking the top 3, and that's your.
That's correct. That
Your-
is my recommendation.
Yeah.
But
But we as a board, that we never said we're only gonna take 3. We can decide on taking however many we want.
yeah, you can take 15, like you said. But my question is, if we put out the RFP, there's criteria. So if some firms have all the criteria and some only have a little bit of the criteria, like, are we gonna follow our process that we started with, or?
What was the process?
What's the process?
Boundaries.
So
No,
the
I'm not
process is
talking-
absolutely being followed.
I'm not,
It's just that, as with any client-attorney relationship, we're the client, and the district, which is the board at this point, gets to interview and select the most appropriate candidate. So the process is being followed, but there's been no language in the process that would determine who from the rubric gets chosen.
Other than the scores.
No.
other than,
there's not-
it's not
No,
about
there's no
scores.
indication in the process that tells you what scores qualify for a public
no.
interview and which
It's
do
just a
not.
score.
It's not about the score. It's either the firm has the qualifications or they don't have the qualifications. And if one firm has 10 qualifications and another firm has 3, then my question is why didn't we just put an ad in the paper if we weren't gonna follow this rubric?
Well,
That's
we
all
are
I'm
following
asking.
the rubric, though. We are.
I think her
But
question
there's
is,
no-
generally speaking, when you have a rubric, the
There's no
highest
range.
score is what's selected.
So in other
Well,
words.
I would say this too, though, if I could, that as we move towards this public-facing interview, there are respondents who are high on that score based on that rubric, which we'll find out the origin and what it means for us. And I think that going down this, what's more important to me than a rubric, even after we determine where it came from and how it was scored, is the interview. So for me, I want to do it so that I could get a good feel on who's going to best represent our children.
Well, let me.
And a rubric doesn't really answer a lot of the questions that I have.
I agree with
But
you.
we're following the process.
I agree with you in the sense that that for you that's important, and when you say, like, for me, having just a rubric score is a portion, a small portion, a big portion. I think we just all have to acknowledge, because we obviously all have kind of, I don't want to say all differing opinions, but we have different opinions on the ultimate outcome here. That's fine. I think we just need to acknowledge that we might associate certain weightings to things differently.
Okay.
I understand your point. Why would we do it if we weren't going to give it any weight, right?
Let me just transfer this over to the classroom. When I taught, we had rubrics for writing. So as a teacher, there was clear-cut things in your writing that you either had in your piece or you did not. Now, if I as a teacher liked Aaron's paper because it talked about something that I really liked, should I give him more credence without those rubrics in his paper than if Scott had all the points on the
Really boring
rubric in his piece of writing?
But I wrote about something that you didn't like.
Yes, and you wrote about something I did not like, but you demonstrated to me that you had every single one in there. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
Are you
yeah, I get
looking
your
back
point.
to like where, I mean, because we had a discussion on, and I don't think, because I think it was just you and I said, like, I don't think you were here when we talked about it, but the RPF in the language that was in it said, we would like to see these things, but it wasn't
That you
mandated that they
have
had, it didn't say they had to, it was, we would like to see these.
I mean, I'm
Right, and
looking
so
at one
for the
right now, it
sector.
says must be, demonstrable experience in most, if not all, of the following areas of public school law. So it's,
who has the most?
no,
No.
in most,
But it makes sense.
but not
I mean,
all.
and
No, I understand
I
that.
completely agree with Denise,
But
because
let me get back to something, because at the end of the day, when any of us, and when we're out there and we're hiring people and we're interviewing those people, that rubric could be all across the board, sky high. But at the end of the day, it's gonna be that level of engagement, how the individual who's doing the hiring feels about that relationship. How did that connection work? Where is the chemistry? Do you feel like you could work with that individual? I mean, that
and
is,
that's a subjective assessment, a rubric is objective.
and that's fine, that's absolutely fine.
that's why you do
that's the
interviews,
point,
right.
yeah, but that's
Just
what
like
we're
a job.
saying is that, and we're getting to the point now where we've made some additions to that, right? But at the end of the day, the interview, you could have someone who was horrible on either a rubric or a test score or their resume or whatever, but man, they did great in an interview, and you really felt like that person can bring a lot to the organization. And then vice versa, you could have someone who was very, very high, and you're like,
But would you do that
that's a
with a
robot.
doctor? If you were having brain surgery and you had two doctors to choose from, one that had all these credentials and all these things that he had learned, and one that you just thought was a really nice guy.
Mhm.
And he may have had the minimum of what he
Bedside.
needed,
Mhm.
but he didn't have anywhere near the experience, credentials, and resources that the first doctor had. Which one do you choose?
That happens all the time. It's called a doctor coming out of med school. Because they have zero experience unless they do an internship or they're.
So you would.
No, I'm just saying, that happens all the time though. I mean, to your point, and they see
I would
patients
say,
all the
I
time.
would say for me though,
But she's
the
not
point
asking.
is very valid, and I'm sure that we could have scenario after scenario. I just
Analogy
don't want the
after
public to misinterpret that the process isn't being followed. The process is being followed. There's gonna be interviews, and there was a rubric, and there were scores given, and to your point, I think, Wendy, or I can't remember who said it, but if we were strictly going by objective scores, we wouldn't need interviews, we would just hire the highest score.
Right.
But the interview is such an integral and important part of this process, which we're following, that I can't say that enough, because I don't want anybody to misread the situation and think that we're not following something that we did.
And there's no
Produce.
issue with interviewing people who have comparative resources and comparative scores.
Yeah.
It just is whenever there's no comparison to the scores.
Yeah,
That becomes an issue.
I got you, I got you. I'm gonna just say one last thing, I promise. So, when you look at some of these firms that you're gonna meet publicly this week, you know, you look at firms that have 70 attorneys, they work with 13 school districts, Seneca Valley, South Fayette, North Allegheny, Keystone Oaks, Hampton, West Allegheny, Northgate. Those are very big, wealthy districts. For a firm to have 70 attorneys, that is massive in my opinion. And so, if you only bring in the people in the firms that look like the firm we already have, then are we really looking at all of our challenges effectively and getting the best attorney, or are we just swapping one large, hate
Well-
to use this word, it sounds so hokey, big city firm for another? The point I'm trying to make is, you know, we're in Beaver County, we're a smaller school district, we're not as wealthy as those.
Like New Brighton. and
Will
New
we
Paltz.
get the attention that we deserve?
Yes,
And again,
and
we're-
the other thing
well,
is, if you hire somebody that has a smaller firm, that doesn't have all those resources, what you end up doing, as we have done in the past, is then you have to hire another firm who specializes in a certain area to deal with matters as they come up.
And
So
we've done
that's your
that in the
opinion.
past. We did that last year
We can,
with a big firm.
we obviously can argue the pros and cons and merits of small firm, individualized attention, but maybe not all the resources, big firm, all the resources, maybe not the individual. We can go back and forth about it all night. But what we are going to do is we are going to interview any individual or firm that submitted a proposal that any board member has requested to be interviewed.
So
right?
all 7?
No, so we had requests for 5 of the 7 to receive interviews. Correct? 5?
That's right.
5 of the 7. So we are going to be interviewing 5 firms. So there's not a firm or individual that we will not interview that a board member has asked to have interviewed. At that time, again, this is all going to be publicly happening on Wednesday and Thursday. We will vote next Monday. We're going to have to, again, we don't have to agree to disagree. We can disagree, but ultimately it's just going to come down to a vote. We're all going to have different weightings and we'll hold things in higher regard or lower regard. That's fine, right? We may be upset about it, but we need to just hear each other out, go through the interview process, then make our decision next Monday, acknowledging that, again, we might have different feelings on what should be given what level of boards.
Scott, can I ask a question?
Sure.
About the timeline sex. We were originally told, and I know this was whenever Dr. Rowe maybe assumed that we only had the 3 moving into the interview process, but we were going to do this on Thursday, and now we're asking our board to come back Wednesday and Thursday. My question, and I guess my hopes, would be that we can maybe expect to maybe dial these down to 45-minute interviews and try to do it all on Thursday, opposed to running this out on 2 different days. And to get them a 15-minute presentation, give us half an hour for questions, and move on to the next one and do it all in one day instead of asking us to come 3 different times this week taking
It's
up all our
hard when you have to
evenings.
do all those meetings.
Yeah. So when I had initially talked.
It's hard for all of us to come. I can't come Wednesday, so it's hard for us all to meet the demands. I mean, I think we need to either bang it all out at once or figure something else out.
So when I had initially talked with Dr. Rowe when the scoring rubric came back, and we had jointly decided, Dr. Rowe and I, that we would open it up. We thought it was in the best interest to open it up to any firm that any individual would like, regardless of score on the rubric. We thought a sensible first step, and I told her that I would like to see all three, as an individual, not me on behalf of the whole board, but me as an individual would like to see the top three interviewed because they scored very highly based on that scoring rubric, and I thought that they were worthy of an interview. At that point, we went, and I believe it was in the board memo, said that any other firm or individual that applied, if we would like to do it, to do that. So I know that when we had initially talked, we had talked about getting those three scheduled right away. Is it even possible to get everyone on Thursday? Can we try to get everyone on Thursday?
If the board would want to make this decision with less of an interview, say knocking it down to a half an hour, we can certainly ask the two people that we scheduled today for Wednesday. We could certainly ask them if they can come on Thursday.
I would really appreciate if we could move it to one day.
I understand how difficult it is to make so many meetings.
What time are they going to be held?
Initially, it was scheduled for, the first three were 7, 8, 9 on Thursday, and then the two on Wednesday were added for, was it 5:30 and 6:30? 5 and 6?
I believe it's 7 and 8.
7 and 8. So we're gonna try and get, you'll definitely have between 7 and 9 on Thursday, and potentially maybe a little earlier and a little later on Thursday if we're able to put it all in one marathon day. If not, it would be in that time range on both nights. So stay tuned. It will be advertised and posted. It's a public meeting. We're gonna have more than 4 members of the board there, so it will be open to the public. We will not be, though, taking public comments or discussion, right? At that point in time, there will be a question and answer from the board, but there won't be any public comments at that point. But we'll stay tuned. We're going to see if we can get that all on Thursday. But
And do we know who the interviewees are? Or is that just
Well, it's
like the names, or I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Interviewers.
We're gonna be doing-
Interviewers, that's what I meant.
It's the board.
No, not the interviewers, what firms
do you mean to
are
know
being
who are
interviewed?
Submitted.
who are the 5
Yeah.
that we're going to interview? I guess it's all going to be public knowledge anyway, right? So we are going to interview Tucker Aaronsburg, Maiello, Bruno, and Maiello, Andrews and Price, Santacola, Steele, and Fidelis, and Joseph Askar.
If Wednesday does occur, is there any way that we're gonna be able to, are we gonna take minutes for all the questions asked and all the responses so that those that aren't gonna be here besides?
Yeah, you can always subscribe to the Beaver County and
Well,
watch the
actually,
playback.
all the meetings are free.
Yeah.
You
You don't
can
even
watch
need to
them for
subscribe.
free.
Well, I
So
don't wanna have to
yeah.
rely on that, not that that's not good or anything, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like,
So we have a board policy that you can electronically participate. So if you're not here, I know that if we have to do it Wednesday, and for example, if you're not here,
Well, I don't know if the consensus of the board was to split it. I was just speaking on my own. So are we gonna try to do it on Thursday, or is everybody fine with doing it in 2 days? I was just speaking my own personal.
I mean, just because I can't be here either, I would love to be able to try and do them all on Thursday. If those that would need to be rescheduled can accommodate the request.
so it sounds like
If
there
they can.
are at least a handful of board members who, and we would like to keep it as, the board as engaged as possible, would prefer if we can to do that. If not, I know that we have an electronic policy. Typically, the policy provides for just a single board member to call in. I don't know if there's something.
The first person who asks and gets approved.
Yeah, ready.
Scott, is it possible?
Scott,
Yeah.
pictures
So,
afterwards?
so one of the things we could look at is maybe setting up some type of conference call line or something like that. We can try and figure something out.
If there's people that can't be here on Wednesday,
Mhm.
and the firms can't move,
Yes.
could we do those next week?
For
We
the
can do it
people,
on
so
Friday
everybody
evening
can
if
be
you
here.
want.
What?
Friday evening, does that work?
Sure.
Denise, the downside, the potential downside of doing it next week is at that point, there's another month that passes with things in limbo without a decision being made, only because the voting session is next Monday. I understand your point, right? Why, or do you want
Well,
to
no,
rush it?
I mean,
But
for the
that's just
people who wanna be here, I can understand.
My question is, so we've already set timelines with firms to come and interview with us before we even discussed what our next steps were gonna be moving forward? So we've already booked people to come in certain times, and at whose discretion was that done?
So when I had talked with Carrie initially, I had asked her to get the first 3 scheduled. It was my understanding that the board was trying to do this with some level of expediency before the next upcoming voting session to
So
get
those
it
3
done.
are all scheduled for Thursday?
So yes,
Yes.
Tucker, Aaronsburg, Maiello, Bronco, and Maiello, and Andrews and Price are scheduled for Thursday. Santa Cola, Steele and Fidelis, and Joseph Ascar are scheduled for Wednesday.
And John Shinderovich, and Fishman did not respond to the RFP.
But they were only gonna
Back,
charge 25%.
Not our wallet.
Is that gonna be enough time to interview them, in your experience? I mean, if we're shortening these interviews, this is a pretty big decision. I mean, I'm all for having it in one day. I just wanna make sure that we're being as thorough as we can, you know.
Speaking of which, the format for the interviews, are we thinking about 45 minutes, an hour? Are there already questions that have been developed that we'll be able to review and then we'll be asking? So
Yeah.
what does that 45 or 1 hour look like, I guess?
Yeah, we had initially asked and allotted an hour time frame, and we were gonna ask for a presentation to be made involving capabilities, specialties, things of the kind, and then open it to a question and answer, questions that we as individual board members wanted to have answered. I don't believe that we have any set questions.
No standard template.
We can certainly, with PASBO and PASA and PSBA's assistance, can certainly come up with a slate of questions. I would have guessed that this board would not want that you'd want to ask your own questions.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just asking if there were, but there's not, so then.
Yeah, all that we asked them to do is to come to give a capabilities presentation.
Okay.
Kind of highlighting different aspects of their firm and.
Oh, okay, good.
As we have asked specifically, correct me if I'm wrong here, whoever the individual would be, or the individual from that firm, to be the one who's here, so we could see who we would be interacting with, or really Dr. Rowe would be interacting with on a more consistent basis. Obviously, we meet with the solicitor in either executive sessions or at meetings, but the superintendent has a much more day-to-day relationship.
So the Thursday meetings were set from 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10? Is that what the time frames were?
Yeah.
7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
So if we were to able to see if we can start it at 5:30 and do 45-minute blocks, would everybody?
Keep them and do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
I don't know if everybody here can get here right at 5 o'clock. I mean, that's.
I'm just making a suggestion, it doesn't mean it's gospel.
I would
Well, I
assume
mean,
5:30 would probably be easier for those that work till 5. We started at 5:30 and then went from there.
Then we'll be here till 10:30.
If we, but he's
Or if
suggesting
we
we
lessen it and make it
45
45 minutes
blocks.
instead of an hour. And
So
try
at
to
least
stick
they'll
within that
finish at
time
the same time.
Well, I would like to give them, I would like to cut our question time and give the farms their allotted time so they could.
Is
We
there,
have that.
I mean this in all seriousness, is there really a problem if we have to stay here till 10:30 to go? I mean, it's a long night to go from 5:30 to 10:30, don't get me wrong, but to give, if we end up needing that allotment of time, I think we should just do it and get it done.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, so why
I
don't?
say we should start it at 5:30 at the
Yeah,
minimum
why-
and then just go from
Right,
there.
so why don't we do this? Why don't we, if possible, if I'm hearing you correctly, right? If I'm hearing you correctly. So what I'm hearing is, if possible, if we can move our interviewers, if we can move the people who we'd like to interview on Wednesday to 5:30 and 6:30 respectively on Thursday, and go from 5:30 until whatever set time to interview these 5 people who have been all of the ones who have been requested by any individual or group of board members to have their presentation heard and then to have a Q&A. Is that what the board would like to have accomplished?
As long as you
from
set a firm time limit for each firm.
Yes.
And my recommendation would be, Scott, I know that 2 of these firms are local people, so maybe even seeing if we can get the larger people that might be traveling further, get them up earlier, and seeing if like a Garrett Fidelis or one of those guys can come to the later sessions, because they can just drive 5 minutes home or whatever. Maybe see if we can have them go late, and then have the 3 Pittsburgh firms maybe send their people at the beginning part of it, just so they don't have to be here until 10:30 and then drive an hour back home.
Yeah, so
It's oddly specific.
there, we do have some of the people who are going to interview are on Thursdays doing other board meetings locally, and have asked for certain time slots. So
Okay.
what we'll do is we'll
Yeah,
try
just figure it out. That's
we'll
fine.
try and figure out the most accommodative way to different individuals and go from there. Wendy, to your point, I think it's a good one that whatever time allotment we decide to set, be it 45 minutes or an hour, that remain consistent for all individual firms, and that we again make sure that that's a standard that's.
Scott, I've never done this sort of process before, so I'm curious, because we are interviewing 2 local firms. Are there rules governing when a board member should abstain from voting? Like, is there like a definite like conflict of interest kind of parameter that's
Jan?
I believe that there's some.
Yeah, that's the same as the
ethics rules.
Yeah. So if you have business with a certain person or a financial, mutual financial interests and different things like that, family members, things like that, yeah, I would think that would have to be an abstention vote, and then not only do you abstain at the vote, but you actually fill out the form, which goes on public record. And provide your reason for your abstention publicly for the record.
so if maybe if we could go over that list next week before we vote to
Sure.
make sure that there's
No, absolutely.
accidental.
No, I think that's, yep,
And
good
then,
idea.
and then after Thursday, then when are we meeting to discuss what we're doing?
So.
At the public board meeting.
The public board meeting on Monday. So what we'll probably do is we will have a motion to approve, and then the law firm's name will be blank, whether it's to retain Weiss Burkhardt Kramer or hire at one of these other firms, but the law firm will be blank. We'll have to have a motion to add the law firm's name, a second, and then we'll take a vote. If
So
people,
we'll be having this discussion publicly.
Oh, absolutely.
Who we
Yes.
should
yes.
either
Yep.
retain or hire.
Yep. And if there's no majority vote to make any changes or adjustments, Janet's firm will be retained de facto, correct?
That's up to you.
Yeah. Well, no, I just mean if there's not a consensus, if 5 board members
If
don't
they don't make a change.
agree, right? The second
Then there
vote.
is no change,
Right.
and we retain Weiss Burkhardt Kramer.
So what you're saying, we're gonna go around for each firm until one of them's picked within a minute. So if we go with Pittsburgh firm A right off the bat, and 5 people vote for them, it's a done deal. You don't move on to the next step.
Correct.
Instead of going around each person saying which firm they want, and then the majority total vote becomes the firm. Because I think you could lose. Because if you get past the first firm, then you might have a firm that 4 down might have 8 people vote for them, but if one of them before them voted for 5, then they never get that chance to be the majority.
Right. So because it's going to be blank, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Isn't that what we talked about, having the name blank going into the meeting? A member will have to make a motion to have a name put in there, and another member will have to motion. So before any votes happen, a member who might want another either individual or firm could make a public comment about wanting to either
Okay.
not have that motion go through, table that motion, explain that they would prefer another firm, and
This is gonna be.
That could go on for a while, but
Yeah, I thought we were just gonna go around and say, Luke, who's your firm of choice? You give a name. Denise, who's your firm? And then we go around, we tally it up, and whoever has the most is the firm that we'll go with.
Solicitor. That's right.
can we do it that way?
Sure.
I just feel that would be just
It'll
much.
be quicker.
Oh yeah, quicker for sure.
What's gonna happen?
So, Scott, I'm sorry, when you are make this public to the times of the interview, are you gonna let us know what time slot each firm is interviewing, like the name, like, okay, Tucker's at X time, and
We will give you estimated times or
Right.
the order in which they're
Right.
supposed to go.
Right.
But it, you know, we might say that this person will go at approximately 7
Mhm.
o'clock.
Mhm.
We're not gonna wait until 7 o'clock for that person to go.
right, okay.
So we can give you the order and what time we're starting and what time we're ending.
Because I'm familiar with some, but not all, so.
Okay.
And maybe, Jared, what we'll do, before any type of agenda is drafted for next Monday, because I guess I was under the impression that there was a set way to do it. I didn't realize that we could kind of straw poll it.
Then you would think of like, if they have two that got 3 votes each, then you would move on and do another vote with just those two being the front runners, then you vote another round.
Yeah, why don't we?
Like if the 2 high ones were 3 votes each, then
Yeah.
everybody else is out, those 2 go to the next round, then we
Right.
go back through and vote on those 2.
Why don't we do this? Let's talk afterwards with Janet on figuring out, from a legal perspective, what we can do and how we can do it. And then Thursday, when we're doing our interviews, we will make it public how our process is going to work at that point. Just so we can have some time to just clarify things with Janet. We don't want to do something outside of what's normal or what would be acceptable in doing it.
So just to be clear, we have to put a new ad in the paper because you're going to want to start earlier. So I will get it out tomorrow, but if the times can't run it on Wednesday, we're done. We can't do it. We have to have 24-hour notice, legal ad.
When will we know?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow
We'll
morning.
contact the Times and see if they can run it. So you want to go from 5:30 is the start time here in the library. Because right now, they were advertised today, both starting at 7.
Gotcha.
So if we can't get the slot in the Times, we revert to the original plan?
It's up to us to decide, I guess.
It's up to you
Well,
guys.
but
Or Friday evening, that works for me too.
So why don't we do this? We'll try and go with the times, and once we know the answer, obviously there will be a memo that goes out to the board. We will put it on the district website, what the updates are, and go from there.
I think that's the best you can do at this point.
That's all you can do.
So if what I'm hearing is.
So my
All right.
last question, Scott.
Yes, no, that's okay.
Janet's firm, because I know, and I don't know if we asked her firm to submit an RFP if they want to continue on, but I know their name wasn't on the list. So Janet, your firm is still wanting to carry on, right? Or you guys, so their names is going to be added on to this as well, correct?
Correct. So yeah, we did not ask them. We explained to them that they did not need to resubmit, that we know the quality and type of work from our past relationship. So we didn't ask them to resubmit for their existing job.
What's wrong?
Any other questions?
Yeah, it appears so.
Denise, do you have questions? No? You sure? Okay.
This is the time for it.
Yeah.
If you want it.
It's okay. Are you sure?
She wants to just tell me. Carry on.
Number 11, approve Garland contract.
This is a contract for roof repairs to the high school and or actually roof replacement for the high school and a portion of Dutch Ridge. So Garland has switched from CoStars though to Sourcewell. It was formerly known as NJPA, I believe. I'm gonna have to check with you. We're still trying to get a set of the contracts. This might not make it. If we can't get the contracts from Sourcewell to prove that they meet all of our PA requirements, we might not be able to put it on. So that one's up in the air.
Is this the whole roof? The whole flat roof here?
Yeah, high school and the flat roof sections at Dutch Ridge there too, gym and over the computer room.
And the roof over that gym has given us at Dutch Ridge considerable, us, meaning you and Dino, considerable issues over the years. All right, questions, concerns? All right.
Money for this is from the new bond, new money? Or
Yeah.
did we budget from this from?
New money from both bonds, depending on when we run out of the first bond and when this hits. Yeah.
All right, number 12,
Wait,
approve.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is that coming out of the pool one we just did? Or the other two previous bonds? Because we haven't.
So we have 2 refundings and 2 new issues. The first refunding was done, the new issue is done. You're gonna approve a refunding on Monday. There'll be another new issue after that. So we still have money left from the first new issue.
Okay.
That will be running through. When we run out of that, we start into the new issue.
Because the order of operations on what project got done when has been shifted based on priorities and needs. Yeah.
But are we gonna, I mean, there should be a discussion on what happens with the rest of that money, correct? Like, we know some of it's going towards the building and the roof, some.
So that's, and
towards
I'd
the
asked
pool.
Mr. Hines about that just before the meeting, because I was actually gonna talk about that in my committee meeting, but we're gonna wait. But basically, they've provided us, because we're gonna, in the second new issue, we're gonna have money left over after everything we've already committed to is done. There's gonna be X amount of money left over from the debt we're taking on. So then we, with administrative, we're gonna have to kind of go through and see what our priorities are. So in the next couple of months, once we get all this stuff kind of going, then we're gonna come back, I guess, and kind of revisit and see what we wanna, right, John?
Yeah,
Dedicate
there
the
were a
money
lot
to.
of energy-related projects that we had planned to do in the middle school, high school, and the other 2 buildings. So those are still on the list, not on that list. And we're planning on going forward with that as well as the renovation of the pool. So it's all those first. When we know what we've got left, then we turn to this list.
And the reason to do it in that order was so that hopefully with some of the energy savings projects, we can slowly recoup
Correct.
the cost of
There would be
those
savings.
projects. All right. Number 12, approve Trinity Automated Systems contract for College Square and Dutch Ridge.
So part of the original energy project were to, the 2 building automation systems at College Square and Dutch Ridge are proprietary systems. And what we switched to at the high school here, we switched it over to an open system. And our goal is to convert those 2 to open systems that will communicate with the high school system, and we'll get it all on one BAS, building automation system. It'll be much easier for our maintenance people to troubleshoot before they go to the building. So the ability to pull it up on screen, see what the inlet temperatures, outlet temperatures are, see what's happening with the fan, and decide, can I go do this, or do I need to call somebody out to do this? So that's part of that project, and that's what those 2, and incidentally, the 2 numbers that you may be able to see in the proposals will have to be increased. It looks like they left off prints. We always want final prints from these 2. I believe they left them off, so it'll be about 10% more. So I've asked this company to update these 2 proposals for that. But they are CoStar's contract.
Questions? All right, 13, approve banknote refunding of the general obligation bond series of 2014.
So do you want the Cliff Notes, or do you want to go through the handout that is attached?
Cliff notes.
Cliff Notes would be, Jamie Doyle from PFM had suspected that because the duration of the remaining bonds left was so short, 5-year duration, that the banks would be very interested in this, and she was right. Out of the bids that we got, Key Bank came in at an interest rate of 5-year note, 1.26%, 0 closing costs,
Ridiculous.
and 0 conditions. They also will let us prepay at a 0 penalty, providing we pay. When we pay it all off. So if we choose to do it all halfway through, then it'd be half of 9.8 million. They'd want it all right now. So no partial prepayments, which we're willing to accept for 1.26 interest rate. It was better than we had ever anticipated.
Free money.
Will they give me my mortgage at that rate?
It's close
Can we
to
bundle
that.
that into this?
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
John, on that note, I know you and I had talked about this. Is there a way for us to issue more debt right now?
Yeah,
Because our project is very long.
It's actually funny because right after you talked to me, she called and we talked
Okay.
about this issue. And so I saw that they emailed it to me during the meeting. They emailed the new number. So it's, we can go up to like 9.646 million.
Okay.
Is as far as we can go, because this thing's gonna count for about $150,000 worth of our bank qualified lending.
The reason I'm asking for everyone, so the plan, John, was between 9 and 9.5 originally?
Yeah.
Whenever we do our new bond issue, I personally think we should just test the market to see if we can borrow up to essentially what our yearly limit is, because of where interest rates are. I mean, it's as close to free money as we're gonna get. And as Jared held up, it's not like we don't have the capital projects, I mean, backlogged, so just something to consider when that comes. That's not this, but that's gonna be at a future meeting, so.
If there's a time to do it, it's now. I mean, there's not gonna be any time in our future in the next, I don't know, John, long time from now where we're gonna have an opportunity to get debt this low. And with the stuff that we've had, a lot of these projects that are 25 years in the making that have lived their lifespan out, if we wanna invest in the buildings, I mean, this is the time. I hate to say take on new debt, but this is the time to do it.
Yep.
So I'm in agreement with you, Scott.
Any other questions, comments? Personnel, it's empty. Item D, other, we're gonna do these together. One
Scott, can I bring up two things real quick in other, because I forgot to bring them up earlier?
Sure.
The first one is, I know we did an executive session before the meeting. I forgot to ask you at the beginning. Can you tell the public why we had, what the executive session discussions were?
We actually do that at the beginning of the voting session.
Oh, so you don't do that now?
No.
You don't tell them?
Yeah, no, anytime, so we do it just once a month and give them the updates on all of
So
them.
next week, you'll tell them what
Yep.
we discussed then, and then if we have one on
Bingo.
Monday, that one too?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The second thing was, we had a board retreat a month and a half ago, and I know part of that retreat was, Mr. Hines gave us a 45-minute long, hour-long kind of budget review for us to consider. I know some of us I talked about the idea of doing one of these presentations to the public. I know there's people in the public that are interested to kind of see the breakdown, learn more about our budget, how this all works. So I guess my request would be, and we can put it on the agenda to vote on, I guess, next week, if we can ask our business manager to provide a public budget recap to the public at the April meeting. And I would ask that we do it at the April work session if possible.
Before the voting session. Is
And
there,
and have it publicized.
yeah, John, was there anything in the presentation that you gave us that was confidential in any manner? I don't believe.
No, we're in the process of updating all of our numbers for the additional bodies that were requested and seeing what impact that has. And we're hoping to have that in the spreadsheet ready to go for next Monday is where we move the finance committee meeting to and have it for that.
So are we able to pencil that in for just with the updated numbers for the April work session, really just the exact same presentation that you gave us?
Yeah, you'll see it on the 16th, and if you think that's good enough, we can do that. I mean,
I think Jared's request was more so that the public could see some of the numbers that we get to see on a more detailed basis.
Your presentation to us was really good. It opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't know about, and I know a lot of people in the public have come for years, and I was one of them, said, you know, we just don't understand the numbers, the budget, it's huge, there's all these complexities to it. If we can just give a 45-minute presentation like you did to us, kind of dumb it down, go through it. I mean, I learned a ton from it, and I just thought it'd be good.
Down for us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jared.
And just maybe do it to the, you know, I think if there'd be some interest there, so that would be my request.
would you want me to start with what we already done? Is that what you're saying?
The one that you did at the board retreat before the guy came on.
Yeah, I mean, I can
Just kind of do
repeat that.
something like that. I mean, you can even trim a little bit off if you want to, but just give a basic overview, kind of like you did to
I
us.
think the pie charts are just extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Yes, like, as far as.
Very impactful pieces.
Okay. Absolutely, yeah. Those line
So
items
include
I think are
pictures?
important.
As many
Lots
pictures
of
as we can?
pictures,
Lots of pictures
stick
and colors.
figures.
Maybe some design.
Not lots of words, mainly pictures, no words.
No line, I don't think line items were real, like, these codes and that sort of thing, like, that wasn't really something I think the
Yeah.
public would necessarily be interested in, but.
And I don't know if
That's-
April, if that makes sense, I don't know the whole
Yeah,
budget process,
I
if it
think
maybe
that,
makes
yeah,
sense
I
to do
think the
it.
April work session makes sense because that April voting session, I believe we're gonna need to do preliminary then, John, right? And then final in May?
Probably be a proposed final, I believe.
Proposed
what we
final?
do
Okay,
first.
yeah. But it's gonna be coming up, I mean, if not in April, then certainly the month I mean, it's right around the corner, so.
Yeah.
So long meeting, next work session, be prepared.
I know you guys
These
like it.
librarians are really regretting.
Why did we go?
So yeah, so we will pencil that in for the April work session under other, and 1 overnight field trip PMEA All-State Festival and 2 overnight field trip Academic Games National Tournament.
They are exactly what they seem. I do want to let you know that the previous board felt very strongly that related to procedure, we should have a male and female chaperone for our trips. That became a little bit tricky with the academic games. We have 2 female sponsors, so I asked one of them to stay back and potentially go next year, and asked for a volunteer from the faculty to go. So certainly someone who is less qualified, but somebody who would meet all of the criteria needed to go on an overnight trip. So you're aware, because we pay for the sponsors to go, and everything else is paid for by the family. I think something else you should really start to consider is the coronavirus and how that might impact. I understand that, like, right now where we are, we don't have that virus here, and so it's a little bit difficult for us to even consider what that looks like. But if we're sending, say, 30 kids and 2 sponsors to Atlanta, we're taking on a certain amount of risk, and we might need to consider, and I can certainly give you some guidance based on what we've heard from the CDC and the Department of Health, of at what time we would want to say, despite the fact that you could go and travel is possible, we are recommending as the school district that you pull back even if you lose your deposit or the cost of your plane ticket or what have you. For example, what would we do, and this is rhetorical, I don't think any of us know this, but what would we do if, when our kids get there, there is a quarantine, right? So 14 days are our chaperones, they still responsible for the kids, then we're paying them to be there. It starts to present a very odd scenario that we've never really had to deal with before. So this is something that I think we really need to consider, especially when we're sending our kids out, because right here, we for the most part know what we have. And then when we're bringing the kids back, if there was anyone who was exposed, and then we have our high school kids that perhaps go to the CTC, right? You can see how spending half a day here, going to the CTC, interacting with other county kids, and then coming back, then it begins to spiral out of control, right? So this isn't a henny penny moment, right? But I think it's something that we really need to keep an eye on for this health, safety, and welfare of our kids, which is something you all do well. Yes.
Do we think academic games would cancel first?
Right now, they have said, they've sent a message to the sponsors and to the superintendents that said that they are not canceling. They will take NPIs, the non-pharmacological interventions that we've all been hearing about. Wash your hands, keep your hands off your face, yeah. all those types of things. And I think they're operating under what they know right now as it exists in Atlanta, Georgia, where our kids are going to go. Should that change, I don't know that we want to rely on them to tell us that they're canceling. I think we want to have a threshold. If it gets to a level 2 by CDC standards, we should perhaps consider pulling back.
When are they going?
This is mid-April. Both of these are in April. The PMEA one is Chorus, and they're going to the Poconos.
I believe most airlines right now are giving passengers the ability to cancel or reschedule at no cost. So, I mean, that's something to consider.
Some do, some don't, none must, right? So maybe better.
So something certainly to keep an eye on.
Better sooner, yeah. But we should definitely be watching this, and maybe even next week when you're asked to vote on it, maybe there'll be an update in that region, and we consider it at that point.
Real quick on the chaperones, 1 female, 1 male. the one that can't go because it'd be 2 females, can this person go if they pay their own way?
Yeah, well, if they pay their own way, then we could
I
give
just feel
them-
bad. I mean, it's a policy that I think is probably smart, but at the
I
same
would-
time, we're
Well, we can also
I would say it's
reevaluate that policy.
procedure.
because-
It's procedure, right? It's not in the policy. But I heard very clearly for safety reasons that this was something
I
that
would
the board
agree.
wanted to do.
I've traveled extensively with students, and I think it's very important that you have a male and a female, if you have male and female students going.
I'm not arguing that.
No, I know, but I, so
I don't
yes,
want to change it
you
either.
could, yeah.
Don't want to change it.
You could say, we want to send we want to send 3 chaperones, and you would be paying for that person's room for the duration of the time that they're there. You'd pay for their flight, which is approximately $300, and you would be giving them school business time.
I agree with you. They worked really hard to get the kids ready
Absolutely.
for that.
I mean, we make the policy, now they're being restricted from participating in something that they've probably been a part of for the whole year.
And it's
But
also
these-
better for the kids because they prep the whole time they're there, and to have their coach with them is really important.
I agree.
I would say that the PMEA, the chorus, band, chorus, and orchestra are the only places where where the board has said it was okay to deviate from that, because when they get there, PMEA has security,
Like council.
and they have all of that in place.
Could a parent go? A male parent?
Yes. And if they went as the chaperone, then we'd be likely paying their way.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be paying for a substitute.
You just need to make sure somebody has their clearances and everything is good.
Right.
They'd have to be on our list.
I mean, like,
Do it.
we do what you said.
Can you look into the total cost that would add to this?
Absolutely.
To allow that individual to go?
Yep.
Is that, and
I will tell you next time.
put that on the agenda for
I think
Monday?
that's fair.
Well, I don't know that it needs to be an agenda, well, I don't know.
I
If
think
it needs
we
to be an
have to-
agenda item, I will have it on the
And
agenda.
to just let us know in the next memo, and then if we need to vote on that, maybe I'm out of line, I don't want
No,
to
I
make
think it's a
decisions for
good
the
idea.
board. Okay.
I just wanted to give a little community input. My son actually was able to attend last year for academic games, is a 6th grader. And just with the chaperone, the chaperones were fantastic. We had 0 issues. And a lot of parents attended too. And the parents really stepped up and made sure the kids were taken care of. I felt completely safe with my kids there. So.
I feel the same. I've been to it
I'm sure,
8 times.
Right.
very sure that's the case,
I agree with you.
right? But we have to.
Right, no, I just wouldn't have put that out there as a
Yeah.
community
It's good to
member
hear.
who's had the
Yeah,
experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right.
Okay.
Anything else? Move to adjourn?
Adjourn.
That was